Welcome, everyone. Great to be able to join you this morning and talk about a message of the day. And, spring coming and all that, I feel like, it's such an interesting time, right? We're seeing spring that's starting to warm things up, and yet there's still a lot of worries and anxieties, understandably so, around the COVID crisis. And how do we get kind of glimmers of hope? Like, that's one thing I've been thinking a lot about. How do we get glimmers of hope? Because I think a lot of the time we can look for external things to get glimmers of hope from. And nothing wrong with that per se, where our hope is like on a vaccine, or our hope is on a better treatment, or our hope is on we don't lose our job. Those external things are fine. And there's another kind of hope that can give us glimmers that's a hope on the inside. There's hopes on the outside and there's hopes on the inside. And I want to talk today about getting kind of glimmers of hope on the inside. Now, some of the backstory to this is in my congregation, New Church Live, it's definitely had some challenges this month in that we lost two people who were kind of central to our congregation. Every congregation has a core, and these were two people who were very much part of that core, and very much just beautiful examples of how to live life. This one professor I talked to, a professor from out in Kansas, I told him I was a Swedenborgian pastor, and he said, "Oh, I love Swedenborgians. They believe heaven is near." And I thought, yeah, that's a pretty good definition of Swedenborgian thought or New Church thought, Christian New Church thought. The idea that heaven is near. And there's some people who, when we're around, we just get that sense that like heaven's near. Somehow they just get it. And they may have an old soul, the way some people might say it. They may say it, just they get it. And it's always kind of interesting because what is it? But somehow they get it, whatever that it is. And both of these folks had that. And both of them inspired many, many people for that reason. And that glimmer of hope, like when working with those families through those memorial services, that actually can give a glimmer of hope in here. Because they had external circumstances, both passed from cancer. They had external circumstances that were deeply challenging. Like there wasn't looking for hope out there per se. But they clearly had found a hope in here that not only was palpable when you were around them, that they weren't living in a hopelessness at all, but it also was deeply impactful on those who shared life with them. I mean, it was remarkable to watch. For both of them, it was doing a memorial service was very much akin to doing an edition, another rerun of the movie It's a Wonderful Life, because of all the people they had impacted. So with that, kind of, how can his words kind of give us a little perspective on that and a little sort of handle on that, a little way to hold that, knowing that his life on this earth, again, his ministry was only 3 years. You can read through the four Gospels. You could, if you were really a good reader, you could read through those in a day. It's not terribly long, but somehow he had that hope too. That had embedded that hope, and somehow that hope impacted so many people. I mean, down to us today in 2020, which is remarkable. And I want to read a little piece where you can see him kind of like talking about it. And it's done with a metaphor. It's done with a beautiful metaphor about the eye, and deeply powerful. Now this is part of what is called his Sermon on the Mount. Again, his magnum opus, his great work. Most historians think this was not like preached straight through. Again, you didn't have people transcribing at that time. There was no such thing. But this was kind of maybe a collection of a bunch of different things that he had said that people had committed to memory because they were so memorable. And they are so memorable, and they're worthwhile committing to memory because they really do kind of come down to the way Christianity actually functions. This is beyond a statement of belief. This is much more a lifestyle. Orthodoxy is about belief. Orthopraxy is about practice. This is Sermon on the Mount is much more about right practice than right belief. So this is what I wanted to read today, and it's really short but deeply profound. The eye is the lamp of the body. Let's just stop there for a minute. The eye is the lamp of a body. At that time, people had lamps. That's how they saw it at night. They didn't have street lights or car headlights or indoor lights or anything like that. So a lamp was super critical. It's how you saw in the dark. Now, for most people, if you said lamp, they would have thought something they were holding out in front of them. But here, Jesus is saying, no, actually, it's here. The light's not out here. The light's here in your eye, not something outside of your eye. If your eyes are good, your whole body will be filled with light. Your whole body will be filled with light. If your eyes are good, your whole body will be filled with light. If your eyes are bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? When you let that in, that's really powerful. What it's talking about there, friends, is it's talking about perspective. Perspective is what brings light or what brings darkness. In other words, how you see determines what you see. Let me say that again. In other words, how you see determines what you see. If our eye is filled with light, like if we're one of those people who just sees light everywhere, of course, everything will be enlightened. Of course, everything will appear as light. And if our eye is just filled with darkness, of course, everything will appear dark. It's why it's important to remember this great quote from Jim Wallace, which is, believe in spite of the evidence and watch the evidence change. Believe in spite of the evidence and watch the evidence change. In other words, if we hold things with light, we'll start to see the world in a very different way. When I think back over this past month at New Church Live, it was really hard losing Carrie and losing Carm. Deep friends, and they're not even family of mine. And I can only imagine if there's any family watching. Certainly my heart just goes out to all of you for the great legacy that they left. And the hole, no doubt, that's there. And there was some way that both of them kind of had this eye of light, this eye that was able to see the world in these deeply light-filled, brilliant ways that were incredible. Neither of them, as a pastor, I can honestly say, neither of them went to life with despair as being kind of their last thought. None of them talked about despair. I mean, obviously there's challenges and there's pain and there's sadness and there's tears and there's worry. There's all these things. And yes, of course, despair will show up in different ways, but that wasn't the primary emotion. That wasn't what you noticed. What I definitely noticed was that idea that somehow they got the light was in here. They weren't looking to find a glimmer of hope out there in the world. Sometimes we get that. Sometimes we don't. They were really able to see the glimmer of hope, true hope, Christian hope, deep hope. They were able to see it inside of themselves. And in a sense, that made whatever happened on the outside almost irrelevant. It didn't matter. They didn't really talk about it a whole lot. They talked about what was in here. So those are the models that can give us a glimmer of hope. So as we go into this weekend, friends, just think, where for you? Where for you? Where can you hold this light, not as a lamp that's out there, but as something that's in here, and most importantly, in here. Thank you, friends. Now I'm going to ask you to join me in a prayer, do a little blessing, and we'll close today's thought. Our Father, who art in the heavens, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, as in heaven, so upon the earth. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and bring you peace. Amen. Wishing you all the best this weekend, dear friends.